This meeting is now being recorded.
And so also to introduce who we have here today, here in the room with me in Washington, D.C., we have Kate Farr and Michael Benedict, who have both been working on developing the Clean Cooking Catalog and working on expanding this as a data resource. We'll hear from them a little bit later, but first I wanted to introduce Megan Groves from Infosys Consulting. Many of you have probably spoken with Megan and her colleague Ruchir Pandya. They have been working with the Alliance on a consulting project to get recommendations from different testing centers about what challenges they're facing, what sort of solutions might help them to do their work. And Megan will be talking today about what process they went through with the interviews, as well as what recommendations they had for us in thinking about data management for the testing centers.
Thank you, Rainey. I'll go ahead and get started. So as Rainey mentioned, hello, my name is Megan Groves. I'm with Infosys Consulting. I'm a senior consultant, and I've done a variety of different data management strategy projects, some more on the kind of metrics and analytics side, and some more on the people and process and technology side. This definitely fell into the latter category, and it was really exciting to get to speak with a variety of different folks from labs and testing centers around the globe, and I'll walk you through some of our insights. So the objective of this track was to support the Global Alliance in their comprehensive data management strategy. We spoke with folks from more than 13 global cook stove testing centers. And the recommendations we came up with were mostly around data management, governance, reporting, and infrastructure. And this is to help key stakeholders, many of you who have joined the webinar today, in supporting or in making informed decisions around the testing and development, the manufacturing, supporting, and the training. And this is also to make the data sharing process simplified. We started by interviewing over 13 different individuals. We did an analysis, kind of maturity model and a gap analysis, and then proposed a phased implementation for the Global Alliance to implement. And that actually, a lot of these things have already been, put into place. And we'll talk about that at the end of this section, and then we'll open it up for some questions and answers. So in speaking with folks, some of the key areas that we noticed that people were struggling with was that there was no comprehensive data management strategy. So basically, people from all over different regions were tracking and measuring and sharing data through a variety of different means. It also meant that there were a lot of different data inconsistencies with the format that people were using. So, there have been some loosely, previously there had been some loosely defined standardized protocols for what those data collection processes should look like. But there was still a lot of variance in that, and that was largely because different testing centers and different laboratories around the globe have various resources. The technology can vary radically. Even sometimes how people calculate the exact same metrics can vary. So that was posing a problem, and it meant that a lot of the folks that we spoke with felt some sort of instability or unreliability in the quality of data. Also, another factor that has impacted that a lot is privacy. And there were some people that we spoke with that felt, maybe their lab had been sponsored by a third party, by a government agency, or a stove manufacturer, and the output of what they were measuring was skewed a little bit, or they felt that they were kind of tied to report things in a certain way. And then also just simply that there are a lot of intellectual property kind of confines around that data sharing. And the last key area that we noticed was posing a problem was that because these shared different formats and the different software used, there were some language discrepancies. So there are all these different kind of barriers to creating a really smooth knowledge exchange, and the Global Alliance is seeking to bridge those gaps. And with the catalog, the expected impacts are that the decisions due to limited data and visibility will be resolved, that greater global partnerships and information sharing can be formed, and that data management and reporting can also serve as a solid ground for seeking grants or other support. So we leveraged the three-step approach to conduct our analysis. As I mentioned, we spoke with over 13 different stakeholders across various functional groups and also across the regions, and I'll just give you a snapshot of that in a moment. So we spoke with cook stove manufacturers, distributors, government agencies or testing centers, private and academic sponsored testing centers, and people focus more on analytics and technology. And then here's an overview of the location of folks, where folks were located that we were able to speak with. So to go a little bit deeper into the pain points that we were noticing, there were, again, because of the IP and rights permission restricting the breadth and depth of data sharing, the stakeholder difficulties locating the desired information that they needed, and some other language and translation barriers. Knowledge sharing was limited. Again, the quality of data that was shared was either poor or unclear because there was no universally accepted standardized reporting protocol. And also, again, because folks had some variance in their process around how they collected and measured data, there was also kind of a lack of visibility into what that looked like and how those calculations were being produced. And the other thing that was really interesting is that there was no common way for qualitative and holistic metadata or sort of supporting data to be reported. So factors related to temperature, to coal availability or pricing in the market, to rainfall, whether or not there was a hood, things like this had a strong impact on the testing outcomes. And so this is one of the things that the Global Alliance will be addressing with the catalog, and there will be a more comprehensive way to sort of understanding the soft data that supports the numbers, so that folks can get a really solid understanding of the factors that influence the outcomes. So as for the people recommendations, one thing we came up with was to provide a guide for submission, collection, and analytics of data to everybody. And this is so that the labs and testing centers can all get on the same page because they, again, range in their capacities of data collection. And so leveling the playing field with regards to procedure is going to be really important moving forward so that there's transparency and that folks can easily understand that there's a baseline that can be used. And again, the Global Alliance has done a really good job of moving forward with that really swiftly. And there are, standards that are being put in place, and you can see some of those on the catalog website. The organizational risk that exists often comes from the fact that people change jobs. Sometimes people are only in certain roles in certain time periods or in certain locations for certain time periods, and also because there's natural turnover in the organization. So that obviously limits information sharing. And so, what the ideal goal is that that other people hold the keys to this knowledge, and that this knowledge transfer can happen successfully. And so it's not just a matter of one or two people in the organization have access to all the important information, but that that's something that can be shared and accessed at least within the organization, and then interorganizationally can be shared a little bit more smoothly and freely. So webinars, online management, and resources and conferences will help facilitate that knowledge transfer. Another great thing which the Global Alliance does is convening a panel of key stakeholders for periodic review of data management standards. And that is partly the objective of the call today, is to give this overview and offer some time for questions and answers and collect feedback and lessons learned. And so this approach will continue to be applied as the program progresses and as the structures to support that data sharing become even more and more sophisticated. And then periodic trainings across the organization will support data literacy management, and then the upload analysis and general usage of the data. We also had some technology recommendations, many of which are underway now. So I'll just kind of quickly breeze over these. An enhanced search functionality with keywords, tagging, and dedicated sections of the catalog will also help with the organization of the catalog. Some people that we spoke with mentioned that occasionally they had a hard time finding what they were looking for. And so, continuing to optimize the search functions and the cataloging will enable people to dive right into to the data that they're looking for, and or can filter it by different, whether they want to look at it by stakeholder or by region or by type of stove and so on. Permission controls will also help within the Clean Cooking Catalog, will also help with providing confidentiality and support and comfort in privacy issues around data sharing. And then parts of the documents may also be, hidden from using password control. And this, again, is because, there are a variety of different types of stakeholders accessing the Global Alliance website in the Clean Cook Stoves catalog. A lot of the documents are already underway, getting translated, and I think, it's our belief that as data sharing has continued to be facilitated, that this will just become easier and easier, as people will begin to, share their work, share their data, and communicate their findings through multiple languages, and that there will be a commonly supported.
All guests have been muted.
So one other point, just to review kind of the process, when we first spoke with stakeholders about 6 months ago, and this was the then process. So most folks said that they collected data in the field of the lab using sensors or on-stove devices, and then they either manually or automatically imported that into spreadsheets or proprietary data storing solutions. From there, the raw data was processed manually or automatically, usually through spreadsheets or proprietary data storing solutions. And then the third step was the testing centers analyzed in greater detail the implications of the test data, and then the meta and insights are derived. The last step is that sometimes that information would get processed in professional journals or passed along to other contacts in the industry. Usually, if that would happen more casually or colloquially in conversation with people that they already knew, or that they would kind of undergo this long period of submitting their work to a journal and then this academic review, and then by the time the results were published, then a lot of the previous data was obsolete or had changed. So the proposed data sharing process would then be that, again, the first couple steps are still the same, but that folks would immediately upload their data to the Cookstove catalog, and then that would help. The tagging would be completed, and so the additional findings would be described, and so that way, even if the testing center were waiting, half a year for the results to be published, that at least there was some kind of medium for that knowledge sharing in the interim. And again, the other part of this that's going to be really important is the kind of coming together, the convening, and addressing areas for improvement, and then to revise that process on the lessons learned. So the idea, the end goal is that as much of what's happening manually in terms of the data sharing as possible will be converted into a more automatic and quick digitized format. And we understand that, again, due to regional preferences, due to resource limitations, and just in general due to how certain practitioners track and measure the data in the fields or in the labs, but there is a broad variety of tools that will be used, some which are more manual and will likely stay that way for the foreseeable future, and some which are moving, rapidly moving into a more digitized fashion. And so the idea is that this knowledge sharing format should accommodate both. So, it should be compatible to folks with a broad range of testing practices and also technological access. That's the overview of what I wanted to share with you today, and I thought that we could leave some time for some questions and answers, and then I'll turn it over back to Kate and Rainey. So I have a really great question here. So passing data to industry or sending off requests, this is a very time-sensitive part of data management. I assume that public money is used to set up the Global Alliance Clean Cookstove data management. Therefore, shouldn't the data be available publicly? What are your thoughts or approaches on this point? Is this question directed to myself or to Rainey? Well, I'll speak from...
I can, sorry, Megan, go ahead, and we can speak from here as well.
Okay. I was just going to say, speaking from sort of the data management point, I'm from as far as I know, and based on the conversations that we've had with people, there are some things that are funded privately, and that they are, beholden to the folks that have funded them, and so, and to a certain degree. And so, there were even conversations that we had where, folks were a little bit less willing to reveal everything, partly because they, needed to kind of stay loyal to the sponsor, so to speak. This, if everything is shared publicly, then it might also kind of reduce or increase the competitiveness of applying for grants and things like that. As far as what information should be shared publicly versus privately, I think that decision is probably going to be happening on a smaller, more localized level, based on each testing center's use case. And then again, there would be permission controls and logins and things like that would help, kind of preserve that. But that's from that's kind of my best guess based on the conversations that we've had with the different stakeholders. And then probably the Global Alliance can address that more thoroughly.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I can jump in as well. I think there are a couple issues here. One is funding for setting up data management systems and like the Clean Cooking Catalog or things that might be at any individual testing center. There's also who's paying for the actual testing itself, who's paying for producing some of the testing data. So I think the goal of to start with the data management systems component, I think the goal of that is to set up a system that can facilitate the sharing and the protection of information as much as possible, whether that's as Megan and Infosys are recommending, or are the mechanisms. I think very much the goal is to optimize how we facilitate sharing data as well as protecting data when it's proprietary. And then on funding the collection of data, I think in as many cases as possible, often governments or foundations, when they support projects, they have requirements that data become public. So I think that that's on a case-by-case basis for funders or investors. And then, of course, if individual organizations are paying for testing services, they can decide for themselves if they would like to make it proprietary. But in general, we do want to set up a system that can be flexible and accommodate these different needs. So Heike or anyone else, any other follow-up questions for that? Okay, it sounds like there aren't. So Megan, do you want to proceed?
That's the overview of what I had. The rest is sort of the prioritization of recommendations. So we can move on to, I believe, was it Kate?
Yeah, we can. Any other questions in general on Megan's talk and presentation? So I think it was quite helpful to have Infosys come in as kind of an independent organization and hear from people's experiences and then provide recommendations on the strategy, on what we're doing so far and what strategy we might be able to have going forward. At the same time that Infosys was working on this, we also had development on some specific parts of this related to the data sharing. And so Michael Benedict is the developer of the Clean Cooking Catalog, and then Kate has started working with the Alliance within the last few months, focused on how to increase the data and the quality of the data and the amount of data in the Clean Cooking Catalog. So if there are no more questions on Megan's presentation, we'll move to Kate. And then I do want to comment that on our last webinar on this issue, I think a lot of people were interested in hearing the recommendations from Infosys. So although I don't see them on the webinar today, I do think that, Megan, you may get additional questions and you may get, or we may get additional feedback. But in general, for all the participants on this webinar, we do want to hear your thoughts on what Infosys is proposing, which elements make sense, which elements are the highest priority, what would be most useful to you as a testing organization or thinking about the clean cooking sector in general. Okay, so at this point, we'll load up Kate's presentation. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Kate's presentation is loading now, or is it not? Oh. Sorry, we have a little delay in getting the slides going.
if anybody else has any questions or comments or ideas to share during the last few minutes, if somebody wants to speak up, we can chat about that while the slide deck is loading. I guess I might also be interested in hearing from maybe from some of you that I did get to speak with. Do these recommendations feel fairly in line with your needs? Do they feel, do they seem like the types of things that are going to be useful moving forward for you and helpful?
We can also make a comment that for people who will in the future be listening to this webinar, listening to the recording of this webinar on any of these questions that Megan raises or that come up in a discussion, we do want to hear your thoughts on these issues as well. So sorry about the delay. I thought we had the slides ready to go and integrated into the webinar system, but it looks like there was an issue. But here they go. We're loading them up right now. All right, so we'll turn it over to Kate Farr now.
Thanks, Rainey. As Rainey mentioned, my name is Kate Farr, and I joined the Standards and Testing team at the end of November, specifically to work on the Clean Cooking Catalog. So just to give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about, so we're kind of moving from the recommendations side of data collection to looking at specifically what's been done with the Clean Cooking Catalog, and then also kind of talking about moving forward what our vision of where the catalog is going. And I definitely want this to be something that is it's a community effort, and it's something that we're always interested in getting feedback on, and any comments or recommendations that you have during this call or afterwards, we're definitely encouraging you to send them in if you're interested in knowing anything more about what I'm talking about. Also, just let me know and I can provide more information on that. So jumping right into it, I can flip slides. It's not flipping. Can you flip them on yours? Oh, there we go. So just as a general overview of the current catalog, the way that it looks right now. So there's 3 sections. There's the stove section that has the listing of stoves from all of our participating partners who've submitted those. Right now they're filtered by stove characteristics, fuel types, materials, geography, retail prices, and performance tiers. There's the testing organization section that has the interactive map of global testing centers, and it links up with their alliance partner profiles if they are a partner. And it also looks at the types of tests that they conduct and stove test results. Then there's this test results section that has the comprehensive test results using standardized performance metrics to allow for comparison within the same category. So that's just basically what the Clean Catalog looks like right now. So in terms of something Megan mentioned about the key stakeholders for the catalog, just to give you a quick overview of the catalog audience. Manufacturers right now, what we're finding they're interested in is looking at product performance, quality assessments of the stoves that they're developing, and promoting innovation within the sector. Then there's consumers who are looking for a resource for stove options, assessments of those stoves, and to be able to compare them. Donors and investors are looking for a resource to support informed decisions and maximize their impact of their donations. Researchers, obviously, they're looking for data for advanced analysis and study, and then finally testing centers, distribution of results, and facilitating sector collaboration. So the big question here that we got is why share test results in the catalog? And I'm going to go through just some of the reasons. There are many, many reasons to share test results with in the catalog and to participate in it, but I just wanted to kind of quickly go through a couple. First, there's this big kind of general area of collaboration where we want to support research. We want unified terminology is particularly important when we're talking about collecting testing data, all of the metrics that we're using to measure things. We want to build a kind of a unified terminology and vocabulary about how we're referring to these things. We want to facilitate discussion and further develop a lot of the protocols that are being used for these test results. Then there's education, and I think this is actually really important, going back to something Megan mentioned about staff turnover on various projects. I think that as it relates to testing centers, we want to be a resource for educating on what testing has been done, what testing protocols are out there, so that we can actually encourage and keep facilitating continued research and testing at these testing centers. And then there's credibility, and I think that this is a really, really strong argument for sharing test results in the catalog. Again, there's this idea of encouraging innovation, being able to compare these stoves. We're establishing a basis for that comparison, really linking up the stove listings with the test results, bridging those two different types of information, promoting industry standards, so the ISO standards and the IWA standards, and then improving the quality of data that we're getting and improving the quality of the testing that's being conducted. And finally, the last kind of general area of why to share test results I want to talk about is the business side of things, because through sharing these test results, you're showing the progress of the sector, which enables market growth. Testing centers participate in the catalog, but as I mentioned with the key stakeholders, manufacturers also participate in the catalog. So we're showing the areas where testing is being done, and we're hopefully linking up those two components to build further market growth. Also, we're publicizing testing services and stimulating future testing through compiling all of these testing results. So just a general overview of the catalog growth so far. The first kind of big phase that we went through was this development phase where we were manually consolidating existing data and test results. And we're still, kind of working through this phase right now of taking previous data, previous test results that have been conducted, and integrating them into the catalog. We've also been working with partners such as Infosys on improving data collection methods, improving protocol, working with our partners like at the EPA to take a look at standardizing protocols and the information that we're gathering. And so from that manual phase, what we're moving towards is this expansion phase where we're hopefully moving to a more automated system. So a more automated process for data collection, and really having the catalog be a living resource for stove information. So not just an archive of past testing that has been done, but really something where we can have information uploaded relatively quickly about recent testing that's been done as well. And then finally kind of moving into this future phase of empowerment, so connecting partners with key tools and resources, and then going back to that education component of educating and training regional testing centers. So then I kind of want to go through a little bit about the stove submission process, and then I'll move towards the test result submission process. But this is really to illustrate kind of the movement that we're making from that manual process to a more automated system. So we've started really with the submitting new stoves, and this is done by the manufacturers, and I'll just give you kind of a quick overview of what that is. So it's really kind of a four-step process. now. We've just set up this Submit a Stove form where the information on the stove is completed. So that's the stove description, the photo, and contact details for the manufacturer of that stove. And then the manufacturer receives a confirmation email that all that information's been input into the catalog, and they can actually go back and kind of see it and edit it until the Global Alliance has reviewed it and either approved it or sent an email saying or requesting additional feedback or additional information. So moving to the process of submitting test results, which is what we're working on now and kind of hoping to have through, I would say, the next couple of weeks, next month, moving towards a more automated process for this. So to briefly go through kind of what the status quo is right now of the current manual process. So our testing partners submit the test results directly to the Alliance by email, and they use the interim stove performance reporting requirements and the form for reporting IWA tiers as guidelines for reporting all of the test results that they're submitting. And then those results are manually entered into the catalog by the Alliance. So we want to transition from that system to this automated system. And we're working right now with Michael, our developer for the catalog, on doing that, and also working with our partners for coming up with standardized templates for some of the more common test results, but then we're also taking a look kind of further on down the line at field testing and uncontrolled cook stove testing. So really trying to standardize the terminology, standardize kind of the look of everything so that those results can be directly uploaded into the catalog. And it'll use a similar kind of submit test results form, similar to the stove submission form. The benefits here, again, we're standardizing the information that we're collecting. It's going to be a faster and much easier process for the submitter. They'll be able to just directly upload that. There will be a lot less of a wait time in between submitting those test results and actually seeing them on the catalog because we've eliminated that manual data entry process. And then through actually eliminating that manual data entry, one of the big things I think in terms of the quality of the data that we have that's important is eliminating any kind of transcription errors that might occur. So in translating the test results that we receive into the catalog terminology, you know, there may be some issues there where we have to go back to the testing centers and get further information, but through this automated system, this direct upload that has standardized templates, we're hoping to really minimize a lot of those issues. And then I also wanted to mention this issue of anonymous test results. I think that this kind of calls back to what Megan was talking about in terms of sharing and protecting data, sharing proprietary information, because we want to start incorporating more of the anonymous test results into the catalog. And the way that we are intending to kind of go about doing this is the anonymous test results can still be submitted through that same submit test results form. It's just going to really ask, do you want to share these results anonymously? And if they are indicated as being anonymous, you know, for whatever reason, maybe they're proprietary, maybe the manufacturer doesn't want those test results shared, then those test results will be uploaded. They just won't have the stove name or the manufacturer associated with them in the catalog. But the users of the catalog, they can still sort the test results by test type, year, and stove characteristics. So they'll still be able to see the stove characteristics, but they won't have that manufacturer and stove name to protect the proprietary information. So moving on to the future catalog development, I talked at the beginning about those first three sections on the left side, the stove listings, test centers, and test results. One thing I wanted to mention that we're looking to integrate into the catalog in the future with test results is fuel testing. Right now, we only have stove tests as part of the catalog, but we do want to start including fuel tests as well. Another section that we're looking in the future to integrate into the catalog is the consumer reporting. So product testing and consumer surveys that are conducted. And we'll likely have more information on that in the future when that's looking closer to launching, but that's just something that is kind of an added benefit and kind of speaks more to the business market side of the catalog's functions. And then finally, this testing resources part of the catalog, so looking at testing protocol and research and reports. And I'll actually speak about that in the next slide, but we've actually just launched the standards and testing site under the Global Alliance website, which has a lot of these components. So we're actually going to be linking up with that site a lot more. So other catalog developments to look forward to in the future. So we're looking at integrating more and including more test results in other languages, data from new studies, and as I mentioned, anonymous test results. So another component of it would be an online searchable version of the inventory to improve the user experience, and that's something that Megan had mentioned in her presentation as being one thing that people really wanted to see out of the catalog is being able to find the information that they're looking for more quickly. Then we're also, planning to work with the Alliance, the Global Alliance resources that we have here in terms of communication to start highlighting stoves that are submitted onto the catalog on our social media. So on Facebook, on Twitter, our newsletters that go out. We really want to start highlighting what work is being done with the catalog. And obviously that's going to be an ongoing discussion whether test results will be part of that, because I imagine with test results that would be a little bit more tricky to sort of spotlight test results. But I think that the general idea here is that we're trying to shine the spotlight more and more on the catalog and have it be seen as the kind of go-to resource, the living document for linking up stoves with test results. And then finally, multimedia tools for testing protocol, including modules, infographics, videos, and that was another thing that was mentioned in Megan's presentation in terms of staff turnover, having those kinds of shared resources on the catalog so that new people kind of stepping into the role can go to the catalog to see what work has been done and to see what the latest version of a certain test protocol is.
We also have a question that came in on how the catalog will be connected with stove reporting, which I'm interpreting that as the results report. Is that right, Heike? I think, well, we can talk about that integration with the results reporting and then you can have a clarification if that's not the question.
So for the results reporting, we've been working very closely with the developers of the results report survey, and we've taken a look at a lot of the overlap that had been done in the past with the results report, the information that was being gathered there, and the information that's being gathered on the catalog. And we've, for this year, for this results report survey that's about to go out in the next few months, we've really eliminated a lot of the overlap there. For the testing centers, I think that so a lot of the questions about stove information may still be asked. I think that we were kind of more focused on eliminating what questions we were asking the manufacturers because we kind of see them as the appropriate people to be entering the stove information into the catalog. But we really worked closely with the results report team to make sure that we're not constantly asking people for information that we've already gathered in some other form. So I think that in terms of any kind of asking for test results or to submit stoves, the results report this year will link up with that submit a stove form, and we'll be directing people to that. So again, we work really closely with them to tie everything together so that you're not having to submit the same information in 100 different places. So that's kind of the update with the results report survey.
And Heike, you mentioned everyone
All
being muted.
guests have been unmuted.
Right now. And if you can mute yourself so that we don't have the background, otherwise we won't be able to leave everyone unmuted.
Now
it sounds like there's a little bit of echo.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, Heike, we can hear you. Let me
great.
see if I can mute others and then allow you to speak. So you also had the question about the highlighting stoves through the communications tools. And I think this is something that throughout any of this, that we only want to share data when permission is given by the stove manufacturers. And so we do want to make these opportunities available to highlight stoves through all these different channels, but we definitely will not be forcing anyone to do it.
Yeah, but the question is as well that, so I assume that enterprises who have are quite professional and in the industry, stove manufacturers, they have the capacity to really submit the data. When highlighting those stoves, for example, via your PR, then it's already, the information, and this can be just, also influence others who will choose which kind of stove. But there might be others which are more appropriate to other local conditions. And though
I think that that's a really great question, and that's been something that we've had ongoing conversations about in terms of sort of maintaining neutrality about, highlighting the work that is being done with the catalog and the stoves that are being submitted without it being seen as an endorsement of one stove over another. And that's going to be something that we'll have to continue to have discussions on and iron out, just to make sure that we're not only spotlighting certain ones that are coming in. Maybe it's that we spotlight solar stoves one month and then, ethanol stoves the next month. We still had kind of ongoing conversations about how to manage that and how to minimize any kind of perception of endorsements of these stoves. But I think that that's a really excellent point to bring up, and something that we definitely need to have in the back of our minds as we're utilizing the Alliance resources. Again, the idea for us is to promote the work that's being done with the catalog and not really, necessarily promote one stove versus another. I think that really, having more and more test results being submitted is going to be, I think that would speak for itself, and that allows the consumers and the manufacturers and key stakeholders to draw their own conclusions.
And can I weigh in for a bit to add to what Kate has said on wanting to maintain the neutrality and support a number of different options. The catalog was designed to provide different aspects of the information, and we do want to, in as much as we can, incorporate as much consumer relevant and user experience relevant information as possible, so that we don't. Each stove will have its pros and cons around price and usability and performance and quality and durability. So we want to make all of that information available. And Heike, if you have recommendations for how we can better reach out to local producers to share relevant information, or maybe even the destination of the information might need to be a little bit different. Maybe it's not so much a global audience, but a more targeted and regional audience. I think that's something to think through. And I'd also like to think about how we can pull together the regional testing and knowledge centers to be the organizations that help to facilitate the data sharing at a more local level.
I completely agree with you that this might be, but you are more, you know better than I the whole issue. But the testing centers can really play a crucial role in my point of view.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and something that we could think more about. How do we make this global resource something that can be targeted more regionally as well?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for that great question. So just actually 2 quick examples of future catalog developments I wanted to spotlight. The first is on testing resources. So I mentioned that Standards in Testing webpage, and there's a link there that directs you to it, and it has testing protocol, guidelines and standards, connecting with testing labs, and getting involved with the Global Alliance community. So we're, going to be more closely linking together that site with the catalog so that they all kind of feed into each other and can serve as a resource for not just the test results themselves, but actually the testing protocol. I think this is really going to improve, especially like any questions. I know I've had questions in the past couple of months about, what's the most updated water boiling test documents, what's the most updated protocol for safety testing, and what we're hoping with this is that it's just the one place that has all of that unified information, has the most up-to-date current information for people to go to. And then I pulled this out as an example of sort of what we started to talk about in terms of thinking about multimedia tools. And this is just an infographic. You can't see, I'll send out the link, but you can see the full infographic. It's something that the State Department actually developed. It's called The Power of Partnerships. And actually one of the sections on there was about the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves. And the thing at the bottom is they actually took this infographic, and not only did they spotlight it on their website and send it out to people and encourage people to share it, but they also turned it into printed materials as well. And what I thought was really neat about that is, it's another way of communicating information that I think that we need to start looking at utilizing the catalog for, and utilizing the catalog, as Rainey just mentioned, the regional testing centers, also looking at what we can develop in terms of taking the information about tests, the different types of tests, and putting them into something like an infographic, and disseminating that information, and also just being a resource for the regional testing centers to have it themselves to explain the work that they're doing with manufacturers, local consumers, and local markets. So this is just an example I thought that was really good to illustrate that. So that is it for me, and I wanted to kind of open it up to any questions or comments that anyone has. I'm sure that this is going to be an ongoing discussion, as well it should be, and as I mentioned at the top, we definitely want to encourage feedback and encourage comments for any of the things that I mentioned, and even beyond that, just in general, data management and how we can improve that process with testing centers, how we can make the catalog more intuitive in terms of use. We're always looking for feedback on that. So we'll definitely make sure to include contact information so that you can reach out with any questions or comments that you have.
All right, sounds like there aren't any more questions. Michael, do you have any comments you want to weigh in from the development side?
Happy to answer questions, but nothing specific.
All right, well, thanks everyone for joining. And this is, as always, a continual process. So this is where we are currently, and we're always looking for feedback on what we're doing and what we have planned. Thank you, everyone.